Go.
Things that trickle in. I'm gonna go check. See if it's working.
I see it on the Twitter.
You see it on Twitter? Yep. All right.
Tweets.
Check LinkedIn.
Oh, very good.
All right. Sweet.
All right.
Dan, take it away, big dog.
Sweet. All right. 3, 2, 1. Everybody, welcome back to Unicorn Finders. It's an absolute pleasure to bring on our next guest from Cope Notes, one of my favorite messaging tools that exists out there, especially when we come into a world where we've talked about a lot about mental health on this podcast and just life in general, is Johnny Crowder, the founder of Cope Notes. Johnny, how are you doing this afternoon?
I am excited right now. So like we talked about, I'm a big sneaker fan. I am trying on some sneakers in my house that my brother got me. And we don't wear shoes in the house, but when you get a new pair, you can wear them in the house to like test drive them to make sure they fit right.
Of course.
And I'm excited about these, but they're a little tight. So we'll see if I like pass out from blood loss during.
Yeah, you got it.
My slippers right now feel great. So my moccasins.
How large of a person am I where size 12 shoes feel tight on me?
Wait, you were size 12? You were size 12?
Yeah, I'm normally 11 and a half, but these are Pumas. And Puma and Adidas, I need to go up for some reason.
I've always been looking for a sneaker guy that wears my size to buy some sneakers. So let's talk after this.
Yeah, flex on them.
I sell some, I customize some, like paint them and stuff. So let me know. This is my true hobby.
We should do a Unicorn Finders sneaker.
Yes.
All right. Well, we can talk about that.
I just ordered custom Vans with the Unicorn Finders logo. Just seeing
that's awesome. I've bought the same pairs of shoes 3 times a year for the last 5 years. I go to the Johnston and Murphy store, I buy the same loafer until they don't have it anymore. So I appreciate what you guys are doing for the sneaker world. I used to do that when I got new ice skates when I was playing hockey growing up. I'd wear them on my bed just to break them in a little bit. That way I could, shred it on the ice a bit. But the world didn't come here. All the thousands and millions of people that are listening didn't come here to listen to us talk about breaking in sneakers and breaking in ice skates. But Johnny, want to talk to you. You and I got the chance to meet back in, I think, late January, early February of this year, and a lot has happened in between then. And I think a lot of what you're doing, specifically addresses kind of the wild times that we're dealing with now. But Johnny, I want to go back to the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about Cope Notes, who you guys are, and then ultimately what your founder story is.
Yeah. So the short version is we provide daily mental health support via text message. That is the entire thing. There's lots of cool little nooks and crannies. But if that piques your interest, you want to hear about the nooks and crannies. If it doesn't, we're probably not a great fit. But really, we're just trying to make preventative and interventional mental health not be so expensive, not be so complicated, not be so invasive. So really, if you can't tell, I'm just like every other founder in the whole world. I wish I could say I grew up thinking like, oh, you know what? One day I wake up and there's a light bulb above my head and I think I'm going to do something miraculous and I'm going to help so many people. But really it was born from my own pain. I grew up in an abusive household and was diagnosed with a number of mental health conditions at a fairly young age. And my treatment experience was abominable. I couldn't stand any part of it. I was not fulfilled. I didn't feel supported. I felt confused all the time. I felt very personally invaded. It's a very uncomfortable experience. And I wanted to see, peer support is something that really helped me. So I went to school for psychology and got involved with peer support and public advocacy through NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Shout out NAMI. And that's really what showed me that peer support is valuable. And I started thinking, peer support is great, but it's not scalable. How the heck do you provide peer support to more than one person at a time, really? So we wanted to figure out how to provide peer support to 500,000 or 5 million or 50 million people at the same time. And slowly we learned that each iteration of Cope Notes before, even some under a different name, just couldn't fully scale. And Cope Notes is the version that is capable of scaling.
Got you. So touch us a little bit about what you guys are doing. Obviously, you're there to provide support. You make it very clear you're not in lieu of a therapist or therapy or psychology or psychologist or psychiatrist, but you're there to provide hope and support. But touch us a little bit more about, how somebody enrolls in your program, and then the type of support and ongoing support, and how you determine what support you give a particular person compared to another person.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like, a lot of mental health tools feel like they are treatment focused, and we are taking the other end. So I don't need to bash treatment. I have benefited from treatment. I've taken medication. I've seen clinicians, and that's helped me a lot. But a lot of people aren't willing to see clinicians. They maybe don't have the finances. They can't fit it into their schedule. Or really, they have this pronounced sense of self-stigma that's keeping them from care. So Cope Notes is kind of that gap filler, that bridge for people who are in treatment and need something on a daily basis, or they're people who would never attend treatment in a million years. They have never been diagnosed with anything, but they still feel like they can improve their mental and emotional health. So in short order, you go to our website, type in your phone number, and you start getting text messages from us on a daily basis. And the goal is for those text messages to retrain your brain. So you are training your brain to think in healthier patterns. We're not texting you like smile or be happy today. These are texts written by peers with lived experience. They are approved by a clinical oversight panel to make sure that we're not just talking out of our butts. And they're all based on proven psychological principles. So they're easy to read. They don't feel very clinical or stiff, but they still feel like casual and informal, and they actually help. And over time, if we can brighten your day today, that's great. But really, our true focus is like in 10 months, and it's your birthday and you get rear-ended. Like, how do you react? What do you turn to? That's our focus.
Right. And so how often is this does Cope Notes, is it an everyday thing? Is it a multiple times a day thing? Is it hey, I only want to hear from you guys, once a week, once a month? How does the platform work?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Originally, my goal was to not even send texts every day. But once we started doing research with USF in 2018, we realized that a big component of consistency is something happening every day.
Okay.
That's how habit forming really takes root. You need consistency. So then we thought, let's text people 1 billion times a day, and that didn't work. So we kind of evened out at around
all the text messages.
For a long time, we've been doing 1 text a day at a random time, and no two people get the same text at the same time. So everyone has their own completely unique Cope Notes experience, but this is a Unicorn Finders exclusive. We just did a soft launch. It's up right now, of a premium text frequency subscription where it's 2 texts a day instead of 1. Cool. We have not posted about it. We haven't really shared about it, and only maybe like 10
you heard it here,
have signed up for it so far. So we're doing a soft launch of it, and it seems to be a crowd favorite. So now it was actually difficult to determine how many texts we can send and at what frequency before we start being too inconsistent to where we're not helping habit forming, or we are so pestery that you start to expect the text and then the effect diminishes.
So I have a quick question. So I'm curious because I've gotten really big on text messaging lately with my business.
Lost you, bud. You went silent, Taylor.
Hear you, Jay?
Nope. I'll dive in on that one then. How did you what are some things you have around just like the problem? I mean, obviously I've heard some like statistics. I'm pulling some of them out of my butt right now, but like from just in the last 6 or 7 months about, uptick in suicide rates and in support help or support hotlines and all of that, how much of that, have you seen an uptick, or is all that, and what do you know around those right now? Because I mean, it's rampant. People who think that they're fine, and get shifted off of your normal routine and day to day just a little bit and get trapped inside for a bit, and the real stuff comes out. Yeah,
I think I'm tempted to jump in on exactly what you just asked, but the mental health advocate is rising up in me and wanting to sort of draw a line and say, maybe our biggest fault in addressing COVID is that we're acting like mental health just became an issue.
Exactly.
Like it's just, now it's important now that COVID happened. And I think that's a disservice to the mountains of data that we have around lack of treatment or underfunded. Actually, we live in Florida. Some of us, Dan and I do. And Florida is actually last year was ranked 50th out of 50 in mental health spending per capita. Last place. And that's our mental health systems are underfunded. They're overwhelmed. We don't have enough options for people. And then COVID. So instead of focusing on COVID being the straw that broke the camel's back, I want to say that camel has been in a wheelchair for 19 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's definitely disheartening to see. I think what breaks my heart on a personal level is to see these headlines that are like suicide and anxiety rates at all-time high. And then there's all this relief funding being poured out to address these issues. And then I'll speak to counties and organizations who are like, yeah, we just don't know what to do. We don't have resources. And I'm like, you're telling me that you have millions of dollars set aside to support mental health. You have a broken system and that money is going to expire and people are just dragging their feet. Like the lack of sense of urgency breaks my heart.
Dang. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. There's been so many factors over the years that have led to, I think, an increase in mental health issues. With the awareness seems to be going down and the issues seem to be rising still. You know, what I am thankful for is a little bit in our generation, I feel like the stigma of therapy is broken or breaking to where it's like, yeah, I was just talking to my therapist the other day and this and this. And it's not like this, like, wait, what? You're in therapy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is huge, but there's so many we're inundated with so many things, right? All at the same time. There's no break from anything, you know. I mean, just reading just last year about some of the, you know, people are, you know, I've got 3 kids who like, they know that none of them have cell phones but like getting into having social media at like 8, you know, and you had cyberbullying on top of regular bullying. You know, there's no safe place at home or no safe place anywhere because you can always be gotten by whatever is attacking you in this scenario. And there's just no rest, you know, and that running with no rest is just, well, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about it as friend groups. Not sure if we've talked about it on here, but, you know, a lot of societies were changing. You know, now everybody has a camera, everybody's on social media all the time, and the necessary need to kind of be perfect all the time is there, right? And so that's hindering, you know, your you know, adolescents, your teens, your preteens, you know, all the way up, and I can only imagine it takes such a mental drain on you. I mean, social media came about really popularly when I was, you know, kind of in the middle to end of high school with MySpace and, you know, the mid 2000s. But I mean, it's only just drastically gone from there. Where do you see your platform continuing to grow and expand to try to reach, you know, some of those groups as well?
Yeah, it was actually difficult for me in the first maybe year or so, because everyone said, why don't you just make it an Instagram page where you post, you know, things that make people smile on Instagram, or why don't you make a Facebook for it? And really, ironically, we are very, very inactive on social media, and that's like by design.
Good.
We're not trying to keep people on the social media channels. Actually, when our text comes in, a lot of times people will be scrolling through Instagram and they get that Cope Notes text and it pulls them out of that like 45-minute rabbit hole of them looking at someone playing basketball and wishing they were that good.
Right.
Like, the whole purpose of Cope Notes is to interrupt. And I think when we started it, that was important. But now in 2020, we're realizing like interruptions save us from these. I don't know about you guys, but during COVID, I have found myself literally playing out these scenarios like, well, what, I've already had COVID, but when I got COVID, I was like, well, what if this happens? And then, well, what if, oh no, then what if I see my mom, or what if I touch a doorknob while at home and then my sister gets it or whatever? And the purpose of Cope Notes is to interrupt negative thought patterns, because we all have something called automatic negative thought. And 80% of our daily thoughts are negative in nature. And we're not consciously being like, let me imagine something terrible. It's something that plays. So people who say, oh, I don't experience anxiety, I don't experience depression, I don't experience negativity. Maybe you don't like those terms, but you are experiencing to an extent that automatic negative thought. And I think Cope Notes fills the gap by pulling people out of those patterns, whether it's caused by social media or school or your job or finances or body image or whatever.
What I love about it, I mean, we go through these numbing techniques, right? Everyone finds their way to hide, in certain ways, when you're unhealthy, especially when you haven't been able to cope through with someone on certain things. Some people pour into, I'm going to stream through Netflix all night, or I'm just going to keep scrolling, or I'm going to listen to music, or I'm going to do this. What I love about it is that you're not numbing. You're more waking up. Hey, you're going down this place. Here's a quick wake up to some positivity or to whatever. And that is awesome, because you're retraining that mind to be like, no, don't be numb into this. Don't numb yourself, deal with it, deal with the issue. And here's the positivity around it. And that I think is huge, man, because we're in a numbing generation. It's like, am I going to go down drinking and rampant drugs, or am I going to go do this or whatever it is, trying to escape reality?
I don't think it's that people can't think positive thoughts. We think positive thoughts fairly often. The problem is we're not presented with a lot of catalysts for positive thought. And a negative thought train can persist for so long that our brain starts physically changing where the synapses are located to make negative thoughts easier. That's how negative thought patterns form. So Cope Notes, the whole purpose is to interrupt those thought patterns enough times in a row where those synapses maybe start to drift a little further apart, while other synapses associated with positive thought have a chance to start growing closer together, so that over time your brain can default to those positive patterns.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, because you just hear a lot about, going back to my AP psychology class, got a 5, not a big deal. But you go back to just like human thought, and you go back to kind of the origins of human thinking, and you almost wonder why we're programmed, to have negative thought compared to positive thought. It's kind of that are people inherently good or inherently evil, right? So it's wild to hear that. I've never heard that statistic before, and that just completely changes. But also in my mind, you start to think about it, you're just like, man, that's totally true. I want to touch you a little bit about, you guys have a huge reach. Couple 100,000, not a couple hundred, close to 500,000 users.
No.
More than
I have to correct you. I wish I could take credit for that. That's how many texts we've exchanged.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, almost 500,000 texts. That's a ton of texts. That's like how many, my friend's daughter sends in an evening, but almost 500,000 texts that you guys have sent out. 92 countries. Incredible. How do you reach such a wide breadth of people from young to old, first world country, third world country? Is it kind of the same thought process, or talk to me a little bit about reach there?
Yeah, I cannot explain our growth. We haven't, we're bootstrapped, so we haven't done a big capital raise and all these big marketing campaigns. We don't have any celebrities in our corner. We don't have these big connections with health players or anything. It's all been literally word of mouth and organic press, which is astonishing, because I remember one day we were on the front page of Reddit, which is the scariest thing that can happen to any startup. I forget what it's called. It's the Reddit squeeze of death, or the clench of death, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it was sure.
Which is where basically you have so many freaking people going to your website at the same time that it just chokes your server.
Yeah.
So that was a stressful moment, but we had tons of people in other countries sign up through that. And since then it's gone up. We only launched. So in the first year of our international program, because we didn't start international, it was only US.
Sure.
And in the first year of our international program, we went from 1 to 71 countries.
Wow.
In a year. And then now we're at 92. And that growth is, in my opinion, evidence of the idea that mental health is a universal topic. It's not like, oh, people in America are all stressed out because of their work, but people in Zimbabwe aren't really experiencing that. Yes, they are. It's so much a product of the human condition. And honestly, I'm astonished that many people speak English in that many different countries, because we don't have another language version at the moment. But it does remind me that when we're writing these text messages, we have to be careful with how we word each text. That's why we have so many people review all of our texts before they're entered into our library, because we have someone in Thailand reading it, we have someone in South Africa reading it, and we have to be pretty careful with our messaging. And even still, literally once a day or more, we're making edits to that live library based on user feedback so that we can better accommodate more diverse audiences.
That's something that I was going to ask. Obviously, a lot of countries are very, very different in terms of, kind of cultural norms and mores that drive them, or are kind of built in, whether, for religious reasons, whether cultural reasons, whether societal. How do you guys, and I want to hear a little bit more about kind of your international play, just because I think it's fascinating, because you're just dealing with so many different types of people. But how do you guys, I guess, deal with some of the changes in cultural norms that, Saudi Arabia might have, that's different than Thailand, that's different than, the United States or, Cuba, right?
Yeah. I definitely think that having a live library is key. So being able to make real-time updates so all of our texts, let's say you receive a text today, Dan, that Jake is scheduled to receive in 7.5 months. If you reply to that text with something that tells us that maybe it didn't fit or it wasn't worded correctly, or if we see a feedback form around it, or one of our oversight panel members says, this is a concern, Jake will receive the updated version of that text. Even if Jake was going to receive that text later today, if he was going to receive it 1 hour after you, which is rare, but if that were the case, he would receive the new version of that text. And I think it is a matter of understanding that if you run a business, you are always wrong in like half the ways. So 50% of the time, 50% of the things you think are correct are incorrect. And you have to create a system that allows you to make these changes on the fly to better protect customers who haven't had a chance to complain. So we focused all of our attention on not only writing, specifically using like copywriting experience to craft a message that can work across demographics, but also expecting ourselves to be wrong, expecting ourselves to have to make edits, and making that system as quick and efficient as possible. Because the fact is, dude, I almost made it an app. There's 2.5 billion cell phone users on the planet who can't use apps. They don't have a smartphone. They don't have internet access. They don't have a data plan. So I don't care how cool your mental health app is or how many 5-star ratings it has. If it's not helping a kid in Chicago because he doesn't have an iPhone, then it's not good enough for me.
Dude, that's nuts. That's nuts. Go ahead, Taylor. You're back.
Johnny, so I have a question for you, and I'm back. I had my problem. Sorry about that. Went MIA for a bit.
Welcome.
Missed you.
Yeah. So let's pull it back a little bit. What is like 1 or 2 pieces of advice, right? You already had a great piece of advice, right? 50% of what you do in business is wrong, and you have to try to pivot quickly.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody has a passion about something, right? You had a passion to start Coat Notes, right? What are some tips and some suggestions and some encouragement that you could offer for individuals who are wanting to get started on something that may not seem like a legitimate business, right? You wouldn't think that sending encouragement through text messaging is a business, but yet here you are on Unicorn Finders.
Yeah.
So what are some words of encouragement?
Yeah. So I have, encouragement or advice, because they're two very different
both.
Well, we like both those things. Yeah.
We like both.
Actually, don't pick.
I got to start with advice because I'm 2.5 years into this, further than 2.5 years. And I just joined a veteran focused incubator to learn how Coat Notes can be better applied to the veteran community.
Yep.
Okay.
This incubator has companies who have not even started their company yet. or are
Yeah.
just in the first stages. They don't have their legal figured out. They're not sure who their customer would be. And the first piece of advice is treat whatever you're building like it's a business just in case.
Mhm.
Because at an incubator, you learn, like for myself, I started Cope Notes as a project, a volunteer project. It became a business, and then I had to go back and learn all of the things I should have done in my first year. So if you have an idea and you don't think it's a business yet, treat it like it is one just in case, because you'll learn so much about your idea by going through the motions, connecting with a couple advisors or consultants, or like I'm sure there's like a small business development center wherever you live. So connect with them, get feedback, go through the motions of starting a business, because whether or not it becomes a business, maybe in the process of treating it like a business, you find out a totally better way to do it. So I think number one, treat it like it is a business. And number two, if at all possible, start with somebody. I am a solo founder and it is brutal. People warned me, if you have a company, you should have a co-founder. The fact is, when I started Cope Notes, I didn't treat it like a company because it was a project. So this just goes back to my first point. Treat it like it's going to be the biggest company in the world, and then go through the motions, because through that process, you will learn all of the mistakes that I've made and not to do them.
That's good. That's one I wrote down.
Awesome.
This down by later.
Hey, Johnny, I want to know kind of your origin story. So I know this just started off as a project of you, for you. When did you know that you kind of had something, and then how did you go about scaling it to, finding people to help you do ad copy, to finding people in, I don't know, the Philippines, wherever it might be, that will review your text messages? Touch us a little bit about the building process.
So people need to understand that I'm not from the tech world at all. I toured in a death metal band for 8 years. I tour in a metal band now that's not death metal, but it's still pretty heavy. So music has been my entire career. And to make money, I did freelance copy for agencies. I did creative direction, design, art direction, tons of copy. And so I'm very much from the creative side of things. I did go to school for psych, but really I'm more from the mental health advocacy side. And I think, honestly, I wouldn't have the help that I have today if I didn't spend 10 years in the mental health industry volunteering. I've been working for all of these different agencies and organizations for a decade. So when I started Cope Notes, I said, hey, I've been doing stuff for free for you for 10 whole years. Would you mind reviewing our text bank? Can I call an hour meeting with you so you can help me understand maybe how to treat this from a clinician's perspective?
That's
so
cool.
All of my connections have been through like serving and serving and serving. And then after all of those years of doing it, saying, can you help guide us to make sure that we're actually doing more good than harm? And as for realizing when we had something, it was when I quit my agency job, which I do feel was preemptive at the time. But we had just B2C open. So we weren't working with like enterprise level clients or anything. It was just individual people signing up. And maybe we had like 100 people sign up or something in the first few months. And I wasn't going to quit my job for that, obviously. And then we had a request from a school district for 150,000 subscriptions. And I said, listen, lady, I appreciate you thinking of me. I run this all by myself. I'm repurposing SMS marketing software. There's no freaking way. We'd be sending more texts in a day than there are seconds in a day. And at that point, we need to have multiple phone numbers. Like logistically, it just becomes like it's illegal at a certain point. Like there's no way I could help you. And I said, besides, in the talk, I said, besides, that would be like $13 million a year or something, even if we did do it. And she said, I know. And I said,
I'm sorry, what?
Wait a second. You already knew that. This might be tomorrow. So I said, how do we move forward? And she said, we can't work with any company that doesn't have a full-time CEO. And I quit my job like a scared little baby. And just was like, I'm going to build this no matter what it takes. So it was definitely a wake up call for me to see like, it's not just for a couple hundred kids at shows and your friends and family. This is something that could impact an entire generation of students,
Yeah.
better parents, better leaders, better politicians, to shape culture. I was like, holy crap, I can really make a difference in this world, and I have to quit my favorite job I've ever had to do it.
That's awesome.
Dang.
That is so cool.
That's wild. That's wild. You've got such an incredible story. What's next for you? What's next for Cope Notes? What's next for your band? All that stuff. Give us the
what is the band too?
Yeah, what band?
Yeah. My band is called Prison. We're on Spotify and YouTube and anywhere you would find us. We have a new song coming out Tuesday.
Okay.
Which is rare. We don't usually do singles, so if you
congrats.
a music fan, definitely check it out. And then obviously we can't tour. We usually tour for like half the year, like 6 months or so. We've been home all year, so that's been a challenge. We're just trying to be creative. Hopefully next year we'll do a great big world tour and everyone's going to be jumping on top of each other like before.
I can't wait.
For me, I really want to start doing more advocacy and more speaking. This year has been difficult because all the speaking engagements I've done have been virtual. Luckily, so my TED Talk happened just before COVID. Yeah. And I know speakers who have had their event switched to virtual, which would have crushed me.
You're right.
So I'm so thankful that I got to do an in-person one, and I'm looking forward to doing more in-person engagements in the future. So I definitely want to get back into advocacy stronger. And then for Cope Notes, we're trying to do more employee wellness stuff, like kind of what we were talking about before we got on. I read a statistic the other day. This was pre-COVID, mind you. The WHO came out with a stat that was like, I have it right here. I pulled it up before the call. It's for every $1 that employers invest in treatment and prevention for common mental health issues like stress, anxiety, burnout, and depression, they see an average return of $4 in improved health and productivity. So it's a 4x return. And just a couple other stats that make me want to focus on workplace wellness. 83% of U.S. workers suffer from work-related stress. And this one blew my mind. Depression and anxiety have an estimated cost of $1 trillion per year in lost productivity.
Unbelievable.
With depression responsible for 400 million lost workdays annually. And as a business owner, a couple years ago, I would have been like, oh, well, they have jobs. Yeah. Now I'm like, if the employees that work with me and for me are experiencing this mental health stress to that extent, I have to do something.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Dude, that's really cool.
Well, thank you again, Johnny, for joining us. We always end every podcast with a lightning round.
Yep.
Where we keep up with points, but yet the points don't matter. So it'll be 5 questions. Answer them as the pops into your head. And here we go. So a few of them are Halloween themed. So we're going to start with that. Favorite scary movie? That is an oxymoron for me because I hate scary movies, but favorite scary movie for you?
The Garbage Pail Kids movie is the
worst
movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
All right. I'm not watching that.
And it is a Halloween. I watch it with my sister every Halloween because it's the worst, quote, scary movie I've ever seen in my life.
I just learned that The Nightmare Before Christmas was a Halloween movie. I've never seen it.
Oh, yeah.
I just learned that on Tuesday that it was a Halloween movie. See, I always thought it was just like a weird Christmas movie, but here we are. So
I thought it was a weird Christmas movie too. So this is why we do this podcast to learn things. Next question: favorite Halloween candy?
Ooh.
If you say
the answer is candy corn, but
we're not going to air this episode.
I promise you.
The answer is definitely candy corn.
Probably $100,000. It's like such a novelty.
Really?
You get one. You're like
a startup.
I never see these.
Yeah, that is a startup founder. You know.
Oh,
give me $100,000 and I'll.
What's the best Halloween costume you've ever dressed up in?
One time I went to a party as your grandpa. So I dressed as an old person and then I pretended to be whoever was talking to me. I pretended to be their grandpa.
Dude, that's incredible.
And it
that's
started
really good.
A lot of conversations for sure.
That's awesome.
That's excellent.
Both my grandfathers are dead, so that would be weird. Anyways,
wow.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains if there's water, beach if there's not.
Oh, okay.
Like there's got to
Okay,
be
that makes
streams
sense.
or
Lakes and
waterfalls
rivers
or
and-
something
yeah,
like
yeah, I
that.
got
Yeah,
you.
it makes
Okay.
sense. Okay. And then final question to end out this round. Your favorite pair of sneakers that you're digging right now, either wearing or want or anything like that. Just something you're either digging or really, really want to purchase.
Honestly, there's a sneaker customizer called Meek's Shoes, and he
Mhm.
makes these Union style Air Jordan 1s that are like orange, like shattered backboard Air Jordan 1s
Yeah.
that have like gray and cream with them, and they've been on my Christmas list for the last 3 years, and I haven't bought them for myself. But one day I will get a few $100, send it to Meek's Shoes, and get some Union Gatorade Air Jordan 1s.
That's awesome. That's
Nice.
awesome. Well, Johnny, thanks for joining us, man. That was a blast.
Thank you for having me.
Johnny, I want
let's
you,
definitely.
before you sign off, plug where people can visit your website, where they can follow you and all that stuff.
Yes. So copenotes.com will have everything. We have a podcast. We have some merch on there somewhere. Obviously subscriptions, doy. And then my band is called Prison. We are on pretty much every streaming platform that you can think of. I am Johnny Crowder. I'm starting to use LinkedIn more. So hit me up on LinkedIn.
Big
Also,
tool.
I use Facebook and on Instagram, I'm at Johnny Crowder.
Okay.
Or no, I'm at Johnny Crowder Loves You. My mistake.
Oh, very
Nice.
good.
I love
I
that.
dig that.
And then I don't
I
believe
love
in
that.
Twitter, so I don't have a Twitter, but Cope Notes does. So if you need to tag us, you can do that.
Don't
I
believe
love
in
it.
Twitter. We're gonna bring you on next time to figure out why you don't believe in Twitter.
Yeah, because
Bring
Dan
it
and I are big
on.
fans of Twitter.
Bring
Especially
it
Dan.
on,
Hey,
do it
they
a
made me
double
get back
episode,
on Twitter,
you
okay?
And the dude from Twitter, and we'll have a chat.
That
Johnny,
sounds
I didn't
good.
know that you're an Instagram celebrity, man. Johnny, it's an absolute pleasure talking with you. I love your platform. I loved it from the time that we talked back in January, and I love that we were able to get you on today. I don't think our conversations are going to end here, but thank you so much, man. Best of luck with everything. Congratulations to you personally, to you and the band, to you and the former band, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks,
Take care, buddy.